There used to be 2 or 3 floating blinds in Middle Bay off Mere Point, and they'd leave the blind out there all fall. And when they set up, they had about 40 or 50 decoys all around that floating blind. So they had a shitload of bean decoys then.
It's funny how they're a lot more fun to put out than they are to pick up.
Yeah.
Well, the scullers used to do that, right? Down in the Kennebec, they would set out all their decoys and then go hang out on the island and wait for the birds to come into the decoys, and then they would launch and just skull down in on them.
Yep. You could kill 2 blacks probably back then.
Yeah,
and that was it. That was their whole day.
Yeah.
Because that
There
was
were no
mainly,
mallards.
that was mainly what was on the Kennebec, right? They would just put out.
I didn't see a mallard till 1975, and I killed it.
Of course you did.
I was walking home I used to hunt in one bay, and then I'd have to hike a couple of miles to get home. So I went from McCoy, Widgeon Cove over to Mill Cove that I lived on, and I was walking along the shoreline back toward my house. I jumped it out of salt marsh, and it's like, oh, mackerel, that's a big drake mallard. And I shot it at about 10 yards and wounded it. And I had no boat. I had no dog back then, and I wanted it really badly. So I shot it again and literally blew its head off. Here I have my trophy mallard, and I demolished it. And I carried it home, of course. And, my mother was the hunter in the family, so I held up this decapitated drake mallard to show her, and she was very proud of me.
And that was the first one you've seen? That you did see at the time?
Yeah, we never had mallards on the coast then. Even though they were releasing them in Miramiting Bay, they never seemed to trickle down the coast where I was.
Who was releasing them? The state? The state was?
Yep.
Where'd you bring them from?
I can't tell you. That was Pat Core and Skip Spencer days.
Yeah,
and,
Skip was, yeah.
And I've actually had to go back and look into the archives to try to understand mallard releases in Maine, because it wasn't really common knowledge and well reported. And so I went back to our banding files, and I found notebooks of banded mallards, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. I realized, holy shit, they actually put a lot out. Just put and take. It was like stocking fish. I don't think they ever flew out of Miramiting Bay.
Why would they?
Right.
Why
yeah.
would you?
Yeah. They didn't know any better.
They thought they belonged there.
Yeah.
So they banded everyone they trapped and
They
brought
did.
back. They banded each of those.
I think they probably bought them as, as
farm ducks, buddy
farm
ducks.
ducks. Essentially were.
Yeah.
And banded them, released them, and, probably had a really high mortality rate on those things.
Think of something that's like less than a 50-year history.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, now it's going to be 52 years.
Yeah.
Think about that.
All the mallards we see now, what are they progeny of? Are they wild ducks? Are they moved west to east, or are they Central Park ducks that have proliferated? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but
To be answered in a future episode.
yeah, you go into northern Maine and see 1,000 mallards.
Yes.
What's the origin of those birds?
Yeah.
I mean, they don't act like park mallards.
No, they've acclimated.
Because originally the mallard-like duck on the East Coast was just the black duck.
Probably hundreds and hundreds of years ago.
Or thousands. Thousands of years ago. I mean, the black duck was the duck that looked like a mallard on the East Coast.
That
right?
was, and resident Canada geese, they came from, Central Park back in the years 30s, probably 20s, 1920s, 1930s. Those were birds that were live decoys,
Right.
and pen raised birds in parks. And that's the origin of those birds. And I'm not 100% sure if there was any eastward migration of wild mallards into Maine, or all these mallards we have now, I don't think came from city ducks. I don't know. I don't think they did.
Well, or European ducks, right? Isn't that the origin
The
of
original origin.
of the pen-raised mallard, right?
I think so. And mallards are worldwide now. they were fun to see when they first started showing up. I don't know if these birds that the state released in the 60s, 50s, well, probably 60s in Mirror-Meeting Bay, I think their survival rate was probably really, really low. And I don't imagine too many made it out of Mirror-Meeting Bay, to be honest with you, to live long and prosper, but they may have. Some, I'm sure some did.
Some did.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of private release
Clubs.
Of flocks of mallards as well, right?
Well, there certainly is on the East Coast. I'm not sure how common that was in Maine. Probably some. Are you aware of any mallard farms?
No,
I'm not either.
You get Chesapeake, down
Right.
Delaware, Maryland.
Yeah, well, they're still trying to do
they
it.
still do it. The buddy ducks.
Yeah.
But I don't know of any up this way. I'm certain that some small farmer may have tried it for his own entertainment, but I don't think there was.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to me, something's a 50-year history. It's something that's so sought after now.
Well, and as an employee of Fish and Wildlife and a duck person, I was always curious about, what happened to all these mallard releases? Why did we do it? And how many did we do it? How often? I've been employed long enough to understand the resurrection of Canada geese into Maine because I was part of that. But the mallard program was just before my time. And it was poorly documented because I tried to research it in department files. And occasionally you could find a one-pager on that we'd write for our magazine years ago that an old biologist who's long retired, the Mallard, Maine, hunter's happiest, newest arrival kind of stuff, but never any real details. The same thing happens with pheasants, to be honest with you. The department had a huge pheasant release program, and we still get pheasant bands called in. And farmer will be out in his field, somebody in their garden will kick up an aluminum band with numbers on it, and it says contact Maine F&W or something. And they do, and here I get a number, and I know it came off something, and I should be able to find that number and say, well, it was a pheasant that we released in 1968, but I can't do it because the records are really poor. But I'm pretty sure it's a pheasant band because we put out so many. We put out thousands of them, and people still find them. It's kind of fun, but that and homing pigeons. We get homing pigeons bands all the time too, racing pigeons, which is kind of fun. So
you're still in contact with Pat Core occasionally.
Yeah,
I bet he could shed some light on that.
Oh, I know he could because he would have been heavily involved in the technical aspect of that as Skip's right-hand man.
Right.
Skip was, of course, a big duck guy, black duck guy.
Oh yeah.
Pheasant program might have been slightly out of his bailiwick, but back then, it was huge. And, just bands are cool and people find them, and they don't know where this came from, and it's aluminum, it's soft aluminum. And, it says contact Maine Fish and Wildlife on it. So, it's not a federal duck band.
Right.
That's been going out for decades. And, 9 times out of 10, I think it's a pheasant. And I wished I could give them exactly what year that was released, but I can't. I couldn't. I could show you the notebook that has all the numbers. So if you killed a mallard that was 58 years old, which wouldn't happen, I could chase that one back because we did have records of those, but I couldn't with pheasants, but it's all fun.
When you started the introduction of geese, say to Flagstaff Lake, did you ever dream it would be that successful?
No, and digress a tiny bit here because I had somebody contact me that had a problem with too many wild turkeys. Just his opinion is that we get too many wild turkeys in the state. And he said, why did you guys bring wild turkeys back to the state of Maine? For God's sakes, they're parasites on the landscape. And I said, well, they used to be here. They were gone because humans extirpated them. We thought it'd be right to bring them back, correct an old wrong of extirpating them. And he said, well, did you ever think about overabundance? And I said, no, our goal is just to reestablish. And his question I thought was excellent, because I started thinking about Canada geese, and they legitimately can cause a lot of problems with too many geese on the landscape. And, the same question applies to what you just said. Did you ever think about too many? And we didn't. That wasn't our philosophy, but I think it's a very good question, and hopefully we can keep numbers in control through hunting, which is our original goal, was to have hunting seasons on both of these. But if you look at Connecticut as an example, we probably should have thought that through and said, they're a problem down there. Do we want this?
You just brought them up here, yeah.
But the beauty of it is, you go down to Connecticut, it's probably difficult finding a place to go hunt them. Oh. And in Maine, I can only think of 3 places where you can't hunt Canada geese. And so if you've got this population on the landscape, at least our hunters can get at them. And, thankfully, we live in a state where you still can have access to hunting. But, that program went pretty well.
When you say 3 places, are you talking about the 3 mansions that are on Cavasie or whatever?
Yeah. With permission, you can hunt those.
Right.
There's a big,
right, because they're tired of that goose shit too.
There's a big farm in near Gray. As you go back toward Yarmouth, there's a back road. I can't remember the route number, but there's a beautiful farm. They sell ice cream and stuff on the side of the road now. It's a big landscape in southern Maine that the geese know about, and they can't be hunted there. But they feed out every day. They go places where probably they can encounter a hunter, but.
They know all the places where they can't be hunted.
Yeah.
I mean, every
only
field.
takes one generation.
Yeah.
They know.
Even golf courses, But
well, actually, you can shoot them on a golf
you
course.
can.
I will say from experience.
That's where I was going. And the Portage area, there's a golf course there where friends of mine, got permission to hunt because they wanted the numbers thinned out up there. And, you're literally hiding in a sand trap, waiting for these birds to come over the top of you.
Better than some places you've taken me.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty easy retreat.
Dry.
I think their only request was, don't let your dogs go run across the greens. Their nails are too sharp.
Yeah, I found the key was to just put the shotgun in the golf bag and drive up in the cart.
Perfect. Perfect.
They have no idea then.
Yeah.
They're pretty until they're not.
Yeah. The goose thing, the way it works, I'm pretty sure you guys know, is we go down to Connecticut and get all these geese and all the goslings, and they're all mixed together in crates and brought to Maine and taken to Flagstaff or taken to Moose Lake in northern Maine, and you release all the adults and some goslings. And it's the goslings we're counting on imprinting on that wetland coming back to. The adults are going to go back to Connecticut, and they're going to go wherever they live. But it's their offspring that we're hoping for that would choose Maine as a wonderful place to live and prosper, and that's what happens. And, there's only a limited number of goslings that come in each of those translocations, but they've already taken off and done really well. Fun program.
Well, the geese are already back.
They're on the way.
The geese are back.
Yep. It feels like spring.
I don't know why. If I'd gone south, I'd still be there. But
yeah, most people aren't back from Florida yet, but the geese are.
It's funny how these birds hustle to get back to their breeding grounds. They want to be first, it seems.
Yeah, but more and more they have discovered places that we are not allowed.
Yeah.
The complaints, can you come get these geese? I can't.
No.
I can't.
No,
I just can't hunt there, Well, I'll give you permission.
Probably in the beginning we did send a team to go get them and move them, but got to a point where it's just we don't have the manpower and the woman power to move geese all the time. So if you have a real problem with geese, you have to call Wildlife Services, USDA Wildlife Services, because they're permitted to deal with that, and they might.
Yeah, and then the word gets out that they gassed.
They don't
geese,
like how
and then everybody gets all.
I want them out of here. I didn't mean that way.
Right. Well, I didn't know you were going to gas them.
I'm not going to name names, but the first time one of our regional biologists moved a flock, I think it was out of Bethel, and he took them back to the Great Game Farm, and he kept them in a pen there for a while, and he decided to euthanize them. I want this problem to be over, and he did. And we do that fairly routinely. And unfortunately, the department wasn't permitted to lethally kill geese back then. So we had a big oops on that one. And we had a wrist slap for taking care of these geese. But, this individual's, the word got back to Bethel, the town manager. He said, "Oh, geez, I didn't know you were going to kill them." He said, "I told you I was going to take care of your problem." And that was it, and he did.
Well, he sure did.
Yeah. When he retired, the department gave him a really nice goose down coat as a joke.
Not many years ago, we didn't open our resident goose season until after Labor Day, remember?
Right.
Because
Exactly.
we were concerned about the folks with the summer camps.
Right. Yeah.
But those were the same folks that really wanted them gone.
Yeah.
Open just as soon as you can.
Right.
My
as
vision,
long as they're not kayaking by, that was the problem. Yeah.
My vision of that was a flock of Canada geese swimming by a camp in McGonagall Lake in Camden on September 3rd. And boom, 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 boom. And you guys are exactly right. It turned out that we were overly conservative, and people didn't seem to mind that their goose populations were being thinned.
You can open September 1st, go ahead. You do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as a sidebar factoid, a Massachusetts biologist, H. Heusman, did a study on how many resident geese do you have to hunt annually to keep your population in control or in check and not skyrocketing up. And if I remember correctly, the answer was 25%. So you have to kill 25% of your resident population to keep it stable. And we're nowhere near that.
Now that's a challenge.
That's a challenge.
Well, that's why it keeps going up and up. I mean, the limits, you can get 10 a day in the south and coastal, right? Yeah.
And we're not.
Doesn't matter if they're not. If you
we're
can't,
probably at 2%. I don't know. I can't remember the numbers, the harvest.
Right. We weren't much higher than that.
Yeah.
No. Even in the heyday when everybody was chasing them.
Yeah.
But now we give up. Nobody chases.
Yeah.
I remember a talk at the waterfowl hearing. One person was like, 8 geese, so you're going to have 3 guys in a truck and 24 geese?
Yeah.
Who that's just absurd.
Yeah.
I mean, that's gluttony. I'm like, but it needed to happen.
The same, how I like to talk about sea ducks. When that was 7 and 4 guys shot 28, we thought that was pretty gluttonous, and they don't taste as good as a goose. They don't taste that good. So we were worried about, excessive harvest and wanting waste. And, we do want these things utilized.
But you had an easier time to count your geese than you did your sea ducks.
Yeah.
You knew you had a lot of geese.
Yeah, exactly.
You knew they would sustain.
Yeah.
I don't chase them anymore. I don't.
It's hard to keep them off beaches at state parks that have nice lawns with picnic tables, and the geese love to eat that grass, and they love to poop on everything. And there are ways you can landscape your state park to keep the geese maybe in the water versus on the land by building habitat barriers of hedgerows and things. So, there are non-lethal ways to try to deal with these issues. But
you just cohabitate. That's all you're doing. I mean, you're just trying to. We're all going to just get along.
Yeah.
Just poop over there.
Yeah.
Quack.